Okay, now, so it's now live. Hit mute just briefly. And then go ahead and stop the video because we won't be in here. There we go.
Oh, good afternoon.
Hi there, how are you?
Hey there.
Good.
How's everyone?
Good so far. The weather is so nice. I can't believe it today.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, well. Hope it stays that way for a while.
Well, I'm guessing with it being mid-November, it could be a little cooler and I wouldn't complain about it. But I was crabbing about it on the weekend when on Saturday it was all rainy and yucky.
I was going to do this outside, but I thought by the time we ended, it'll be pitch black and no one will be able to see me.
Yeah. I used to move my office outside, when it was nice out, but
A little breezy today.
yeah, it's a little bit cool now. Although there are a couple days last week, I guess I could have pulled it off for a while.
So why do we really do daylight savings time?
Yeah.
I just like it so much.
Yes. Why did they change it? I don't know.
I laugh because my mom used to complain about it when I was a child, and I was like, oh my goodness, Mom, stop complaining. Well, now, I'm much older. I'm thinking, yeah, I don't like it.
It wasn't that long ago, though, that they pushed the dates back considerably, didn't they? Like a few years back?
Could be. I don't know for sure.
So I read in the Times that we've got a new city manager.
Yes. She'll start in January 11th. So I'm excited about that. It's been interesting because I'll have been doing the job for about 5.5 months by when she comes back or when she starts. So
That's
it'll
not
be
a
nice.
small amount of time. How's it been, especially during all of the state of the world right now?
The department directors are just fantastic. It helps, I think, because I've been here 14 years. So I've been working with them for a long period of time. But they're just so reliable and accountable and responsible. And when there's ever an issue, they just come see me about it, and just makes things so unstressful because they're just so responsible for their departments. But it has been interesting, especially with all the COVID things, and especially in the period of time where we had to shut down City Hall, the front door, and then had to do the whole thing with permitting, and even with the recreation complex, and then figuring out even how to do a budget in times like this.
Yeah, it's a quick snap to just do everything digitally, that's for sure. That's good that you've got good support from your whole group there to keep things moving.
Yeah, it works out so well. So I appreciate it so much. It's going to be
Great.
different, actually.
Great place to live.
So should we wait a few more minutes? I'm not sure who all said that we're going to attend or not be able to make it today.
I think everybody, well, I hadn't heard from anybody except I think we received an email this afternoon from Elizabeth Bloomfield Deal, but I think she was the only one who said she wouldn't be here. And I think we need to have we have a quorum. We might want to wait just a couple more minutes. I figured Laura would come on too, unless something happened with her schedule.
Okay.
So are you guys looking forward to the Thanksgiving this year?
Who's to say? Like we're uncertain. I think like my family at least, like we're just trying to figure out like what do we do? Do we just not do day? We just hope for it's a nice day outside one of the days and just kind of get together at a park from a distance and just to meet up or not at all or what? So,
Yeah.
Well, we decided to close our office after Thanksgiving because for a week and then assess the situation, because you can't be certain that, people don't go out and, contract it. And so we figured better safe than sorry. And Erica, is Parkway Schools, is it all virtual?
no, everything's hybrid right now. So we were gonna go full in, but that's been delayed. So we are hybrid. So essentially students come in every other day, Tuesday through Thursday, and Monday is virtual. So
Wow.
yeah, it's and I think every day, just looking at data and things shooting up, our school boards and superintendent group, et cetera, like it's a lot weighing on them, and I'm trying to figure out what the right decision is. So
Oh, yeah.
It looks like we're still waiting for Jamie Hassemeyer and Laura, and that's it, I believe.
okay. Well, and not getting into it too much right now, but and just trying to identify different potential things to focus on in the coming year for this group. There's kind of a theme that I got is there's a lot of work being done on the regional level, and if we can leverage as much, in my opinion, if we can leverage within some of those groups and tools and actions or strategies or plans that are already developed, there might be some great ways we can just kind of plug in and get some stuff done. So there's some really cool stuff out there. So I even from a school, like, kind of the focus that I have with Parkway, some of the stuff that I didn't realize the extent of what some of these organizations do. So it's pretty interesting.
Sorry, dog barking.
Well, if you want, Eric, I'm fine if everybody else just wants to go ahead and get started, because I don't know if the other two are going to join us, and that way we can get our discussion started. And then I do have one visitor comment that was sent earlier that I'd like to read shortly when we get to that point on the agenda, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, thank you. I'll pull that agenda back up. But essentially, I guess was it called a meeting or something like those lines? So I'm not sure what formalities I need to just call out specifically, but is someone able to take notes, or I'm not sure if have we identified a secretary? I feel like we asked this, we kind of go through this motion every time.
So I think Elizabeth did it initially, and then John was kind and did it the last time.
Gotcha.
The other Elizabeth.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that last time, John. Would you be up to the task again, or is anyone else willing to step up to take some notes?
I'll just do it, Eric.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, with that, we can call the meeting to order. And if you are able to just kind of take note on who's in attendance, that would be terrific.
Will do.
Thank you. And it looks like Jamie just joined us. So welcome, Jamie, just in time for getting rolling here. So
sorry I'm late.
good, things happen. And then if everyone had the opportunity, we're just going to go through kind of motion second for approval of minutes from last month.
I motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Who seconded?
I did, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, great. Okay. Well, thank you for that. And then, so I'm kind of going back and forth between the minutes and the agenda. Okay, so yeah, if we want to start off with those visitor comments then. So I kind of cruised through it quickly. It looked like there's some interest in the walkable, bikeable plan.
Yes, so I will read it to you. It's from Jackson, and I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce his last name, but I believe it's Hoteling or Hoteling. And so here it goes. It has been brought to my attention by Councilmember Arnold that the Sustainability Commission is establishing its strategic goals and initiatives going forward. I hope we can make TrailNet's 102-page Webster Groves Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, completed August 2014, a priority. The comprehensive plan will help the city prioritize investments in walking and biking, encourage maintenance as opportunities for improving the network, strengthen applications for government funding, and identify opportunities for encouragement, education, enforcement, and evaluation. I was amazed to recently discover this plan after walking around Webster and wishing there was better bicycle infrastructure. Here is what I've gathered through discussions with city leaders. Webster Groves commissioned an extensive plan with TrailNet in 2014. There was disagreement between residents and city council about the future of the plan. Large parts of the plan were put on the back burner, and after 2 city councils in 6 years, many people are unfamiliar with that plan. Some parts are being implemented, such as some curb cuts, as well as the exterior expansion of the Great Rivers Greenway network. Meanwhile, Kirkwood seems to be taking their 2014 TrailNet plan more seriously. St. Louis city leaders are also making headway with bicycle infrastructure improvements to streets such as Tucker and Jefferson. Due to the pandemic, people are purchasing bicycles in record levels. Significant research demonstrates that biking and walkability improves health outcomes and boosts business. Equity is also improved. It seems like this is the perfect time to capitalize on aspects of the TrailNet plan. A direct reason we lack people-oriented infrastructure is that we value parking, which makes up roughly 50% of space in our old Webster commercial district. Our parking minimums directly encourage this, as well as other factors more specifically addressed in TrailNet's plan. Because City Council is revising their parking development standards on November 17th, I hope anyone interested can join me in a Strong Towns webinar on November 17th at 2 p.m. I'm so sorry, I just messed that up. At 12 noon Central Standard Time, that demonstrates the need to remove municipal parking minimums. Additionally, please review the TrailNet plan. If anyone has interest in discussing how we can boost the TrailNet plan, please contact me. Let's not let it lay. And then there is more information in the appendices that he attached to that email. Thank you, and I'm sorry about those errors I made.
All good. Yeah, and it seemed like that some of the appendices, I remember I saw like one map that identified what seems to be highlighted areas that are parking lots and spaces within Old Webster. So I think just kind of pointing to that perspective or opinion that parking is an issue within Old Webster. So with that, I think that might be something that we can kind of roll into, I guess, our next segment of business. And I don't know if, I guess, Joanna, if that's, do you feel that we need to address that comment in any particular way, or can we address that with our conversation and talking about strategic goals, initiatives, et cetera?
I think that's when we would talk about it, is the conversation on strategic goals and initiatives.
Okay, great. All right. Well, and starting with that, I think that we can identify, we can go through that process. So I've created a Google Sheet, and what I should have done is actually like shared it with everyone, so that way people can enter it live. But I might be able to just kind of address it. But I'm thinking what we could do is identify specific strategies that we think are important to consider for next steps. I think that as I mentioned to those that came in the last few minutes or whatever, is that there's a lot of great regional work that's out there. There's a lot of work that's out there that where some groundwork has already been done, that we might be able to plug into to try to leverage different resources that is out there. So one example is a organization 1STL. And so I think that group has an enormous number of resources. So it's a high level overview. 1STL is a organization / group or collaborative of many organizations within the region of and by region, I mean like the greater municipality of the St. Louis area. So by state area, going out to, Franklin County perhaps, and et cetera. So of trying to further sustainability initiatives. They have a 200 some odd page plan in which, dozens of individuals participated and created this regional plan and framework for how to move the region forward with regards to sustainability initiatives. And then a lot of these tools are geared specifically for municipalities. And if there's codes or ordinances or initiatives or whatever that might be able to be pursued or enacted or approved or whatever, that can help further this region's efforts. So I find that was interesting, and again, I think very strategic approach to sustainability. And so again, back to the concept of what we're trying to do here is, well, how do we narrow our focus then? If that's something we wanted to look at, how do we narrow focus then? So what are those things we want to be prioritizing? So, but I think that's something that it might be worth considering and worth looking at of kind of adopting this group, this commission to potentially plug into, and then working to identify among those various efforts or goals that this plan has put forth, which ones that we think that make sense for Webster to move forward. So one of which is, thinking kind of outside, there's a whole program they have of kind of trying to create these pollinator corridors. So if with more people being outside lately, walkable, bikeable being something that's calling to people's senses of wanting to advance, then that might be something as well that's related to outdoors and outside. So there's various different elements. At any rate, what I'm thinking, what we could do is potentially I can kind of plop different concepts that people are having down on this Google sheet, and I can try to find a way to share it or go through it here, and then we can try to come up with a rank system, essentially, in identifying what each individual of this commission's personal priorities are, what value you want to give it, and then we can potentially assess and figure out what might make the most sense to move forward. So, but I'm all ears if someone else has a effective collaborative committee prioritization process that's worked well for them. So I'll leave it there.
Eric, we could do something where one of us has notes and then shares the screen, and we can edit that screen if you prefer that. Or we could just take notes and then bring this up at the next meeting. It depends on what the group prefers. But anybody can really share the screen with the button down.
Okay. Great. Okay. Awesome. Well, I can look at potentially doing that then, is just to share.
You already have one started, right, Eric?
No, I don't. That's
okay.
I have my own that I have, but I was trying to create a group, so I did not organize this as best as I could and should have before this meeting. So I apologize for that.
No problem.
Hey, Eric, I guess I would, and maybe this can be before or after, but go back to the idea of, if we identify some broad topic areas and then have work groups, maybe 3 people, 4 people on a work group, depending on what people's interests are, to do some brainstorming and bring some ideas back. not that we can't, float some things here, but
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile, and I think that there's some degree of success of that within the last year or whatever, right? So that way that if any individual is particularly passionate about something or has a degree of expertise in something, then that might be better suited. If that's something that is workable, I think that might help keep things moving along. So
yeah, I've also got something, and this relates to the visitor comment, and there's not this doesn't apply to anything directly. It is very applicable to walkable, bikeable, but I wanted to bring this up just to see if there's any interest in it. But I don't know how many people are walkers, bikers, runners, and have heard of a social media site called Strava. It's sort of a social media fitness site that bikers and runners use to log their workouts, and there's a map of where they go. But I became aware that they have an initiative, they call it Strava Metro, and you can Google it and look around, or I can share the link to it. But so they are working with nonprofits and local governments to share aggregated data on where people are biking and walking and running. And they're making, it's not open to everybody, you have to apply for it. But I think it's free for the city or the Sustainability Commission. And what you can do is, and there's a demo on their website, and it's really cool data. And the demo is for the city of Denver. But what you can do, and what you could do theoretically for Webster, is you can look at different corridors throughout the city and see how often they're being used. You can look at when they're being used. You can look at seasonality. You can look at time of day. You can pull up a heat map of the entire city and say, okay, people are heavily using Lockwood, for instance. But it's just, I'm not sure, it's enough data to, they claim that there's really good correlation between, actual traffic and their segment of users that record their bike rides or whatever on this app. But at least it's a level of data that you can use to start making future decisions. And if we're going to at some point down the road want to make additional investments in bike lanes or infrastructure for walkers and runners, it might be a really good place to start and at least yield some pretty good insights. And especially because it's, from what I understand, it's completely free to use. But I'm happy to send this along. You can poke around and look. It's kind of really cool.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting tool that can potentially be used for walkable, bikeable, and I think that's something that maybe let's kind of circle back to with that comment. And looking at the walkable, bikeable plan, it is a pretty in-depth plan. A lot of it seems to have a variety of different goals and strategies, et cetera. Some potential rough costs estimated at specific bike infrastructure measures. There, I didn't notice that. I would assume that all of us here would be on the same page that yes, and we all want walkable, bikeable. That's a goal that we want. I think that's a pretty popular thing in theory. Now with the plan itself, I think I noticed a couple different things. One seemed to be like outreach and education, which seems like a lot of it was put on the commission to do. And another seemed to be infrastructure. And so from my perspective and looking at the plan, which is great, and looking at that, it's the Sustainability Commission for education. It seems that there are a lot of different educational organizations about walking, biking, safety that's out there that I wonder if that truly has this commission could really add value to what's already there without trying to spin wheels and and trying to get into schools or make publications of stuff that essentially is out there. So that's one thought that I had with it. Another thought that I had with it was with regards to infrastructure. So with regards to Jeff's comment of if we need more data, and it sounded like that other data was gathered maybe a year or so ago with some study that maybe the Great Rivers Greenway or something like that had pulled together on trying to identify traffic of bikers in certain areas or what have you. And so with that, it seems like that there might be various mechanisms out there to collect data. SG Collaborative, I think, is doing some of it as well with their proposed projects. And that could help guide infrastructure. So I guess with some of the walkable, bikeable stuff, it seems like that might just be either organization specific or it's infrastructure in which it's dependent on the city to really allocate resources to make those infrastructure changes or collaborate. I don't know if that's me just kind of, brushing it off, but it seems like this is some like civil engineering work that's required to a certain extent, right? So Joanne, what's your perspective here? Like I know that, again, long story short, it seems like the commission was tasked to do certain things or to kind of like own this and try to push it along is what my perspective is. But it seems like anytime that's happened, either it's costing infrastructure that can't really be forward easily, or it's educational stuff, which it seems like it's just duplication of efforts.
So there was an issue with addressing some of this several years ago because we don't have like 4-lane roads and things like that. We have 2-lane roads. And the issue was if we did it on Lockwood, then we would then be narrowing that road even further than from what's already narrowed in order to provide a bike lane. And so at the time, the former city manager didn't feel comfortable supporting that. I think that this could be an opportunity, however, to review the plan. It would be a plan for most of our council members to see, because I'm not sure that many of them have seen it before. And it would be a nice opportunity for them to review it. Although I'm speaking, I know our city council has a lot going on right now, so I'm not sure I really want to hand one more thing over to them, but I'd actually like to let Laura speak for a minute if she'd like to about the topic.
Sure, and let me apologize for being late. My calendar said 4, my brain said 4:30, so I apologize. So every single one of the council members, except for the mayor, was not through this process. And so there may be, and frankly, I think there's a little bit of a different perspective than maybe there was a few years ago. And so it might be worth talking a little bit about some of the issues or ideas in here and maybe prioritizing a little bit because, part of what I think you all could do if you're open to it is really think through what are the most important things in here for us to do and ask the council to review those. I understand exactly what you're saying, Eric, in terms of duplication of efforts. And yes, there are organizations promoting biking and promoting walkable communities. But I would also say in terms of the communication with our community, this is a group that knows where to find all that information. I'm not sure the same can be said for the broader community. And so we might also think about, are there ways to amplify those organizations through this group as opposed to reinventing the wheel, information that you all think is particularly important for our community members to understand. That's just my quick thought. But I'm taking very seriously today in this planning that it is not my job to tell you what to do. It's my job to help you facilitate what you want to do.
What's the rest of the group's opinion? I think like this topic's been brought up, ever since I kind of started this commission years and years ago. So, but I think our accomplishments as a group has racked up to be like, a bike rack. So, and I think we even try to push some effort into like last year, something like those lines, to really having a concerted conversation about, the sidewalk conditions or the intersection at Big Ben and Elm. But it seems like it's been a lot of work and discussion that hasn't really gone far. And I don't know if that's and for what reason. So what are other thoughts out there on this topic? Because it is a really well-developed plan, but it doesn't seem to get traction. So that's my perspective anyway.
Well, Eric, I'm just going to jump in here and say, I think that thinking back for the commission, like I was a little surprised to learn, I guess it was maybe a year or 2 years ago or whatever, that the city was going to repave like a pretty large section of Lockwood. And then as paving it, they're going to stripe it. And then we're going to strike a bike path lane down there.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't going to happen. And
yeah.
I
agree. And I like it. So I used to reside, south of the rec center where so Glendale being a very wide road, just bordering south of the rec center. And I think there was new asphalt work that was done there, a year or so ago, and nothing was done with regards to bike there. So like I have a hard time, like us as a volunteer group, spending effort on this if it's not being baked into the development process of the city.
Eric, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, my house and my internet, I wanted to drop kick. Sorry about that. Okay, so I think we're talking about the walkable bikeable plan still from 2014, right? Great. So I think that it's important that we also acknowledge, like, yes, I don't want to waste any more of our time, and but I really think this is important, and we have new liaisons, and I think perhaps a new vision and a new will. And I think somebody pointed that out earlier, and I just want to underscore that. And I think that's really important, because I even remember when we were talking about walkable, bikeable, whatever, like a year ago. And I said, I mentioned, or somebody mentioned, oh, we should connect with the people at the hub, the people who know the streets well, and like where would be a good place. And I remember our former liaison was like, you don't want to go down that route. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. This is my first time like doing anything like this with the municipality, with the city. So maybe I don't want to go down that route, but it just seemed illogical to me to not reach out to the people who use the streets the most. So that said, I was also just aghast that we didn't pave our stripe Lockwood to at least acknowledge bikers. So I think that there might be more will, is my point.
So I guess that to that point then, that I might suggest as a group, well, Laura and Joanne, like if you have recommend or thoughts on how to navigate this. Again, there's a lot on their plate right now. SG Collaborative, I'm sure, is a really big thing as well. And so like, I think there needs to be a certain amount of, in my opinion, I think there needs to be a certain amount of commitment from the city, because again, there already is a really, really developed plan. So if there needs to be a re-education, re-awareness of this, essentially, you know, certain council members or whomever to like read through this and see what it actually is, or I don't know if that's public works to get a better understanding and refreshing or what, or if this is tabled for a certain time of the fiscal year that it makes sense, like help us understand on when it might make sense to maybe reinitiate it, reinvigorate, like revisit this plan on how the city can potentially take steps or not into exploring what the best paths are to getting some of those recommendations accomplished.
So Joanne, I'll start and then you add what you would like to add. I think I understand the frustration, but I do think Jamie's point should be well taken as well. And so if you do not, if you feel like it would be a waste of your time, because I can't promise you the council is going to do this. I do believe the council is probably more open to doing this than they were a while ago, or some parts of this. So I would suggest perhaps you as a group saying to council, here's the plan. Will you review it? And if you believe you're open to discussions of it, we're going to work on it a little bit and prioritize some things within it for you. And that way you at least have a soft commitment beginning of the discussion, so you don't think you're spinning your wheels. But then, you know, given how much is on our plate, if this commission is willing to do some prioritization and some education with the council, then I think that would be better received than just saying, here's the plan, what are you going to do with it? Because I'll tell you right now, that would be overwhelming to most of my colleagues.
Well, that's why I guess my part of that comment that I wanted to let me touch on again is how does that fit within potentially public works? Because if we're talking about infrastructure improvements, like where is a good timeline for them to be like, they know what the types of measures are most expensive, or the regions or roadways that are most problematic, or what's up next on the replacement cycle, or whatever else. Like it's so I think that a part of like we can just look at the plan and say, or give our own personal opinion, right? I think that having those experts and that staff to identify what might make sense to have them give it a look over might be valuable as well, beyond just the commission.
Joanne, do you want to weigh in, since this is really a staff that's pointing the staff direction?
Yes, so I do agree that it would be helpful to have public works staff, especially the director and some of his staff, take a peek at this. I would say that if we did something like this, since we're already in November, it would take a few months for them to take a look at it. I also would like to review it myself because I don't remember the details of it. I do remember when it took place because the former city manager did share the material with me and I did review it. So for my own personal interest in it, I need to review it in detail. But I think if we gave it a few months, we could come back and talk about this. I think though that today we probably should look at other items and just kind of table this for a couple of months so we have an idea. And if anyone wants me to share, I have the packets of materials that I can email to everyone.
Joanne, before we move on from walkable, bikeable, from this discussion, did the city ever buy its own striping machine? I remember that's something that Steve had discussed.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Which also changes the dynamic a little bit because it's less expensive then.
I just have one more thought on the walkable, bikeable. It might be helpful to look at the TrailNet plan and then maybe reach out to TrailNet. It sounds like we already know what some of the problems are, like that Lockwood is maybe not the best choice of route. And then it might be also helpful if we went through, there's a ton of funding for bike trails. So it might be helpful if we came through and looked through and said, look, these are the places where Webster could qualify to get federal aid or federal grants. And so then there's, you know, two pieces of the puzzle that the city council doesn't have to think about.
And that's a good point. And I'd also like to add, and sorry, my internet froze again. So I don't know if somebody already said this, but what if, is this a potential subcommittee where our group, a portion of our group can work with Public Works over the next couple of months and then maybe present something to council with, you know, a collaborative set of priorities?
So I think we're just talking at large of like what this group wants to work on, and a resident had brought up this plan. And I think this, again, since this plan is already well-developed plan that's out there, but it's had limited traction, that's where it pops up in conversation. Is there a chat feature in Zoom? I'm familiar with Google and I'm trying to share the link.
Not for cities. I don't think for cities.
Got it. Okay. So the plan is, well, anyway, the plan is on the I think the Sustainability Commission's page, or so on the Webster Grove Sustainability the Webster Groves Sustainability Commission's webpage. There's a bunch of different links that are there. One of which under transportation is Webster Groves Walkable Bikeable Plan. So for those that have not come across it or want to reference it. So, but yeah, there's a lot of different measures that it discusses. Yeah, so.
This is Chris. I'm on my phone and I've never done a Zoom on my phone before because everything's wackadoodle over here. Two things that I was wondering is if it might be helpful going forward with this committee to have someone from that department on our committee, besides because they could bring those issues to their department if it's more of a staff thing or staff becoming aware of what's going on with the walkability plan. Second, I was in that One STL website, and when we're talking about strategy, I noticed that Webster Groves is not a member of One STL, though Richmond Heights and other cities are. And I'm wondering if that might be also another place when we talk about partnering with other communities in the region for best practices on these ideas, besides just walkability, but everything sustainable. So that was my other idea, and I will unmute or mute.
Yeah, I think that's a worthwhile idea. It seems like that there's a lot of resources that's there. So One STL, again, let me do that. I kind of got too many windows open, but I'll share my screen to kind of show one, the walkable bikeable plan, and then two, what One STL is. So excuse me one minute.
Eric, while you do that, I do attend the meetings for One STL for their materials and recycling group and their newly formed food waste group. And it's really awesome, and they got a grant to get that off the ground, One STL, but they, I don't like to implement a lot of their ideas and strategies. They don't have a ton of support. Financial support, unfortunately, but it's people like Jenny Wendt. I'm sure you guys have heard of her, like at U City, who is, she's a big part of that.
Yeah, so that's a good point. They don't have like funding for implementation of the measures they've identified and indicators to take place. However, I think that is a good network of experts that you could potentially, like you mentioned, lean on. So if we're talking about how do we make bike lanes happen? Like there's probably a really good network of those experts that have overcome some of the challenges that Webster might be facing.
Yeah, ton of experience and knowledge there for sure. So it'd be great to be a more active part of that.
So this is just kind of real quick what this site is. So okay, excuse me. So first of all, set a different page. Excuse me. So all right, this being One STL. There is a full plan that's there that talks about this regional work that's being done with regards to sustainability, and it covers a variety of different goals, indicators, et cetera. So I mean, these are the indicators that they've identified. So these are all different indicators for success with regards to the social part of sustainability, the environment part of sustainability, as well as the economic part of sustainability. So all types, you can dive into those different indicators and how the region has been trending, et cetera. You can download the full plan that's there. It's a couple 100-page long read. Then there's also a toolkit that you can go into here. So if we're talking about, so let's say we're local government staff, resident citizen, et cetera. What do we want to talk about? If we're talking about transportation and we're suburban, so you can essentially filter out these various different tools that exist out there: bicycle, pedestrian facilities and programs, et cetera. So carpooling, climate action plan. So again, a variety of different tools and resources that are here that we could potentially do deep dives into and seeing what different types of mechanisms they have indicated. So we'll talk about different how-tos, walkway planning, Great River Green Rate, so Missouri Bicycle Pedestrian Federation. So I don't even know what a lot of these things are, but they have it all just teed up for us right here. So, you know, at any rate, so this is a good resource that I think would be potentially worthwhile, as mentioned, to align ourselves with or consider aligning ourselves with. So what I'd like to do is ask, well, let me rephrase that. Does the group commission feel it's worthwhile to review this organization to see if it's something we should align ourselves with? So how I'll phrase it. Or let me phrase that even more. I don't want to just say, you know, everyone look at this site, come back, let's, you know, discuss next week if this is something we want to do or not. But that's essentially what I'm asking, right? So like I'm not saying this is what we should do. I want to leave it up to the group, but I want everyone to have the time to review it, to see if I'm off track or whatever else.
I think it's worthy, obviously, I'm part of it, but I just by volunteering. But Aaron came from 1STL a while back when Kim was part of the group still, and gave a presentation. And I think most of us were there. Just to kind of give a summary of what it is. I think it would be worthy. I'm more familiar with it, but I mean, I am familiar with it, I should say. Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to be a part of.
And this has a variety of different things. So as people were still kind of thinking, so like even energy codes, right? So if we're talking about potentially adopting a more stringent energy code, or even if we have, I know we've got building codes, but I don't know if we have energy codes. So there's, it kind of covers a gambit of things. So, but I'll dial back from that, since that's just one of many different potential options. So.
Well, I know, Eric, I've been on this site many times and there's tons of great info on here. I'll admit I don't
Okay.
know that much about what it means to be a part of the organization, and that's something that I think I will put some effort into.
Yeah, and I think that it's I think the resources are there. I think that's kind of the goal is where I'm kind of driving. It's like if there are certain goals that are out there, do we want to be considering aligning ourselves with one of those goals? So if they have a certain indicator for walkable, bikeable, then potentially do we want to jump on that instead of kind of creating our own? Is kind of what I'm getting at. Like if we join the organization, great. I think that just who knows what added benefits that brings. But I think that it's more the action that we take resulting from it is where I was going, is kind of, again, what those goals are, so we're not reinventing the wheel.
If we do something like that, does that require like a blessing from, for lack of a better term, or lack of a term I can't think of, from council or anything like that?
If we as a city join, somebody has to approve that. Is it formally the council? I don't know. I don't know, is there a cost to joining? That would be the other question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
What benefits does it, the other thing that might be something to ask is what benefits, other than their plans that are already there on the website, what benefits does it bring? I mean, the information's already there. So when we're putting our name on it, you know, are we just saying like, this is what we support, or is there a benefit to it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I think that's where I want to try to reframe is from my perspective, it's less about joining and being signatory or whatever, and more about just identifying what these different goals are that are there, and if it's something that we want to essentially attach ourselves to, or rather, let me rephrase that, being able to just leverage whatever tools and resources that are there in order for us to accomplish whatever it is that we're going to prioritize.
Yeah, I know that like things that they've worked on, like the ad campaign, Stick with the Six. So they do have like money to, and they use like a marketing firm. So that has been something. I'm sure you've seen billboards around town for that. And then you just they've been working on plastic film and plastic bag recycling and awareness on that. So like the signage, they have some new signage that's going up on all those Trex containers, like at Schnucks and the like, to kind of draw people's attention to what can be recycled in there and what can't be. So again, I'm not sure exactly what the direct benefit is for Webster, but you know, a wider community, you know, I guess cooperation is there, but I don't know, like if we say yes, we'll be a part of this group, does that allow us to use some of their marketing materials on, you know, things like our website or our communicating?
So what are, let's
I can find out.
Let's go to like an individual's thoughts. So we talked about walkable, bikeable plan, that's something we're going to potentially review in a few months. But that's it. We all agree that that's something that we would like to see move forward in some shape or form. So Strava Metro potentially being a tool that can help inform the municipality on what direction to potentially take. One STL connectivity, you know, a goal alignment essentially is what I was getting at. So what are, I guess if we all just want to essentially kind of take turns identifying in researching this past month, what are items that you think that this group would be well suited to help solve and promote and advance?
Well, I have two things that I think are important. Green Dining Alliance, which I know we have discussed in the past as well. And I know this commission before I was part of it, did some work on this to try to encourage restaurants to be to become green dining restaurants. So I'm curious to look into that a little more personally or commissionally. And then I'm also curious to see if there's any, if it would be palatable, and I don't know yet with our new city manager when she comes online, but to re-enter the Green Cities challenges that Deb Frank had initiated a while back. I think that was measurable, also aspirational. So I think that's kind of where we need to be right now with looking to the future.
I think something that is an obtainable goal for our committee is to look at where the grants and state and federal grant funding is. Like I know that the Missouri Department of Conservation has substantial funding for non-for-profits for having local plans and like that, and maybe reaching out to some of the not-for-profits that are in our community and properties which are in our community more eco-friendly.
I'm sorry, Elizabeth, I lost you a couple different times there.
It's a win-win because for them it's like near, oh, sorry, my internet must be on the fritz.
It could be me. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, you wrote down essentially what I was saying, that those things are around and that we should be reaching out to our community to share them so that maybe we can make our community greener just by simply telling people that they're available.
So connecting our regional, our organizations within Webster with potential grant opportunities that are all about making things more green. Did I
Yeah,
understand that correctly?
that's a good summary, yes.
No, I think okay, yeah, I like that. I mean, there's a million different granting authorities that are out there, right? But I don't know how much, say, a school district that's looking to do a garden knows that Whole Foods does a garden grant or whatever else, right? So those are really good points.
Can I
What
bring up
else?
our Webster School District real quick? Is there any way, I mean, has anybody, I think historically, and maybe John, you can speak to this, or I don't know who's been on the commission the longest, but like, have we ever worked with the school district commission?
I don't know if any large extent. I think there's been kind of touch points here and there, but I don't think any large extent.
Okay.
Hey,
A lot of potential there, but I don't know if, yeah. Go ahead, John, sorry.
oh, sorry, I was just, Eric, as long as you're taking down sort of this commission strategic goals, personally, I think our goal should be one of, I'm searching for the right word here, but it's like review, looking at things that happen in the city and addressing them or advocating for or against, depending on how we see them as addressing sustainable goals for the city. And maybe we would need to like codify what those goals would be, but advocacy, is that the right term? It's not exactly that, but like a lot of things happen here, and it seems like we tend to talk about them after they've all the decisions have been made. You know what I mean?
So are you talking about, okay, so you're talking about the city essentially having sustainability goals. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'm talking about the commission being able to address some of these things that happen in the city, whether it's a city funded thing or private development or whatever, and be able to, say whether these things are sustainable or not. Sort of like how the ARB looks at plans and says, this meets the city's guidelines or this doesn't.
So
A seat at the table.
Yeah, so I think that I think you're getting to the I'd agree with that. And so I think that what I think you're getting to is the action that would result from that action being review of the review of that's the action resulting from establishing, goals of what that city might be, whether that's, certain codes or certain ordinances or certain requirements or whatever. I don't know what, or just initiatives in general. So I think that if we're talking about kind of more of that council level stuff, that's where I think this goal alignment could potentially facilitate or identify finding those resources that are out there that could help municipalities in identifying what's right for Webster. Because I mean, there's certain things out there like the ordinances for like tree trimming and stuff like that, right? Like, I mean, there's some pretty great things that are there to make sure that Webster maintains its aesthetics and we can solve other environmental benefits of a tree, right? So like if that approach is taken towards like other things related to sustainability, is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe we would have to put some effort into determining what those goals should be. There are an awful lot of organizations out there who have come up with lists of sustainable guidelines. And as you say, some might be apropos for our city and some might not. But
You know, if I might just comment on this, when John used the word advocacy, you know, some of the time that will mean advocating to other boards and commissions within the city of Webster Groves, right? The Plan Commission reviews all the time ordinances that impact sustainability, whether it's the size of the house you can build on a lot, whether you can have a garage. I mean, the council has spent 3 meetings talking about whether we should have a mandatory driveway width or not. That comes out of Plan Commission, but you all have ideas about how that impacts sustainability. And I don't know whether in this and I think a couple of these things I have said were coming down the pipe when we've had meetings, but I don't know if there's anyone here who actively monitors what happens on the Plan Commission. Because that is the by ordinance organization that really looks at so many of our changes to our ordinances. I mean, another good example coming down the road is Parks and Recreation is going to be heavily involved in a couple of years in planning for a new recreation swimming pool process. And, you know, I know that there was some tension around the firehouse and whether this group should be involved in making suggestions about the firehouse. But if you want to make some suggestions, or as Elizabeth suggested, find some grants that might make sustainability a bigger portion of what that rec center remodel looks like, or pool, it's really the pool as opposed to the building, you know, earlier is better than later. And that's forging a partnership with Parks and Rec, I think.
Laura, if I can jump in, you bring up the advocacy and what's happening in other boards. You had brought up before, I believe, talk about townhomes or multi-family housing was a topic. I think that's something we should strongly advocate for in terms of, increased density and things like that.
And so the townhome bill, which would make it easier essentially to do duplexes throughout Webster Groves, is before the Plan Commission right now. And so they'll meet again the first Monday in December, and they'll have some more public hearings. And this is the place where you all can say, you know, we are the Sustainability Commission of Webster Groves, or I am a member of that, and we think this is a good idea for X, Y, and Z. All that material is available. And if you really want to know what's going on in the Plan Commission, there is on the city website, what is called Notify Me. If you go to the city website, you can find Notify Me, and you can sign up for an email service that they will send you when it's published, the agenda for the Plan Commission, so that you always know what's going on. I will do my best to let you all know what's going on. And actually talking about that was on my list today when it became my turn. But yeah, it's probably better if there's a backstop besides me remembering everything that's going on there for any given meeting.
Might there be a role? Am I muted? I don't know if I am or not.
Right.
Might there be a role for one of us to attend those meetings on a regular basis, to be that voice, so you don't have to be the rememberer of sustainability all the time? Is that a possibility of somebody from sustainability attending those on a regular basis and being that voice?
I'm just going to say that's up to you all.
So it sounds like that it's a public meeting, so anyone can attend. So if someone wants to volunteer to attend on a regular basis, that sounds like that's an option. Is that correct?
Yes.
Just so you know, there's also minutes available. Sorry, I interrupted you, Laura.
Oh, no, please go ahead, Joanne.
I was just going to say there's also minutes available for past meetings that are on the website, just in case you don't have an opportunity to attend the meeting in person. You could at least kind of sort of get a summary of what was discussed.
Is it worth identifying, other key city commissions and having one of us from sustainability sort of be a liaison and keep an eye on what they're doing, and maybe even keep in touch with the chair of that commission, just so that we know what's coming up beyond just looking at agendas when they come out?
So I think that there's some benefit in that, and I think one of the problems we have in our more general governance is that our boards and commissions tend to work independently of one another and
Right.
not be, short of you all with green space, I don't really know of other commissions that have spent much time working together. They may have in the past, but part of that is that their roles are defined in ordinances in particular ways, and those definitions don't necessarily acknowledge the degree of overlap of interest. So I think that that's a good idea. And for a lot of boards and commissions, it's probably just calling the chair periodically and saying, what's on your agenda? Is there anything that we should be aware of? Rather than having to go to every single meeting. For example,
I agree.
the Arts Commission, though, that might be a great partnership for educational purposes, right? Because they have several events throughout the year. And if there are things you want people in the community to know about, then that's an opportunity to do that. So there are lots of ways to do this, but it's labor intensive.
And so I think that because it's so labor intensive, like I personally feel that that's great to catch things as they're arising now and into the intermediate future. But if we're talking about trying to establish how, if we're trying to give recommendations and advocate for how city officials can establish what it means to Webster with regards to sustainability goals, or how they're going to do the thing, whatever that the thing is, whether it's paving roads or lot sizes or whatever. Like, I think that's something that's bigger in that way. If there are certain goals or metrics or procedures put in place, then that kind of ensures that those processes are followed whenever something arises, whatever that process might be. It could be something extremely simplistic, or depending on the prioritization or the appetite of the city, it could be something that's more aggressive. That's something that the city really values. So
I need to cut out. I need to be smart 5:30. Can I just leave one thing on the table? I was a big fan of promoting like recycling the yard signs. It costs us nothing. It's very easy to do. And there are other things we could do in the community, like where around Webster or neighboring municipalities could be recycled light bulbs. Here's where you can get subsidized, thermostats, things like that through Ameren. I mean, a lot of that stuff is just real easy. I don't think people know about it. But sorry, I have to run. So.
Those are great ideas. And if we had an opportunity just to know about, just get a little more information about them, we could publicize that information in our, monthly community connection, or on our website, on Facebook, etc. There are many opportunities for that. It's just that I'm not necessarily aware of it, and I don't know necessarily if other staff are, but it would be a great opportunity to communicate that information. And back to,
I think that's a good idea too, Patrick. Yeah, and
communication.
Joanne, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead, that's okay.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm sorry. I do think that could be an interesting service that the commission also could consider, is like a quarterly tip or quarterly information that we could, as here I am with my subcommittees again, but as a subcommittee, 2 or 3 people coming together to say, hey, we want to communicate this important information to our, community. And I don't know, I just think that that's part of sustainability. And John likes to say, part of a sustainability commission is building community as well as taking care of the future. So I don't know. I just think that's a good idea, Patrick.
I think something like that would be extremely useful, because then we could put it in our quarterly newsletter, which we haven't done in a while, but we're getting back to it now. I just have a little comment too about the communication thing. So I think it might be, I believe Laura had suggested, if someone speaks with the chair for like monthly, quarterly, whatever, of the planning commission or whichever commission there's an interest in, I think that would be fantastic, because then you would get an idea of what's on the agenda and could get a heads up in advance as far as what's going to be covered. And then even if we needed to do something as a entire group ourselves, we could, or if just one person from our Sustainability Commission wanted to give an update, that would provide a great opportunity too. But I think establishing those relationships would be very important.
To some of those points, like with regards to the planning commission review boards, et cetera, if public comments are provided to city council, do council members is that information going to be directed to those review boards, or is it only going to be directed to those review boards if the comment is made through that venue, whether that's at the hearing or whatever?
So do you mean like if there's public hearings
Yeah,
and
so-
comments are made? I don't know.
So I'm sorry, I was just giving a concrete example. So we talked about SG Collaborative as an example, their project. We talked last month of, okay, well, do we want to provide a list of recommendations? And even within this group, there's different viewpoints, et cetera. And so I myself, got some resources, information, and sent that to city council of like, I think this project should be seeking certification for LEED for neighborhood development. And so that was received, and I got a response back and from a council member, and that's terrific. That said, I'm wondering if that information will go to whatever appropriate review board, or if that information would not go to the review board. Would it only go if it's delivered through that venue, whether it's at the meeting or through whatever public comment period, if that's how it works? I don't know. I'm just trying to better learn the requirements of communicating points and perspectives.
That information that you had provided was delivered to the entire city council and the mayor. And it is a part of their packet that they will, I'm certain, review from time to time. And actually, at some point in the future, we will be discussing it in more detail in our subcommittee.
But I
So-
think there's the more general point, I think, answer to your question is whoever you send it to, that's who gets it. If it becomes part of a public hearing, so an official public hearing that Plan Commission will do, it won't. So let's say Plan Commission has the first public hearing on the SG Collaborative. There's not one scheduled, so please don't interpret me saying that that's there. But let's say the first one happens. That will not automatically get forwarded to be part of the public hearing. You would have to resubmit it again. Now, the sort of exception to this is anything that comes to a public hearing and then that ordinance change or that resolution goes to the council, everything that happened in the public hearing goes to us on council. So if it's submitted to a public hearing, council will see it. Otherwise, if it's submitted strictly to a board or commission, the members will see that. And so I do think you can't make the assumption that if it goes to the city council meeting, that it will go to the appropriate board or commission. It'll go to council members, and then it will go to the staff member in the city who is in charge of that area as well. Joanne, did I miss anything in that?
No, you've got it. Exactly. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. So essentially that it needs to be communicated in those venues. So anything from a public hearing will go to council. Otherwise, it essentially could get lost. Like it might be received, it might be remembered, it might be enacted upon in whatever mechanism if someone got that feedback. But unless it's part of that public hearing throughout the applicable commission, it's not taken into. Okay, got it. Good to know. And then that helps me know, like with this group, as you kind of are guiding and directing us to, these are good venues for this commission to engage in. That's where I'm just want to be clear on ensuring that if we're doing work to come up with recommendations, that it's going the right mechanisms and we don't take another route thinking that it's going to get there, but it doesn't. So thank you.
Also,
I guess
as a
the one
side note,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Laura. On a side note, on an annual basis, we were having our chair of each committee once a month given, or I'm sorry, on an annual basis, the chair would give an update to the city council. We haven't done that in a while, but I'm going to start putting those back on the agenda for those updates to be occurring, because I think that's great for the chair and the council to have a one-on-one discussion.
And I know we're sort of in the weeds of process here, but the other thing that I would say, Eric, about this, especially the Plan Commission that has public hearings, if you all, want to shape what's going on there and you wait until it comes to the council, remember the Plan Commission makes those recommendations to us, and it's probably better to have that influence start when they are thinking about what that recommendation is going to look like, rather than coming to us after they've made that recommendation, which is why I've suggested, getting a little involved in what the Plan Commission is doing.
I think that's why I suggested, being part of those meetings, so you kind of catch it at the early stages versus waiting till after decisions have been not made, but pretty much, in a certain, been vetted already.
As far as priorities the council might see, or the Joanne that you might see, just knowing your staff, like what, so that way we can make sure that we're working in the same direction and not creating an extra thing. Like, is there a priority that either or both of you would think that we should consider? Like, I think those are great points with regards to how to better get into the fold of city workings, but with regards to whether walkable, bikeable, or anything else under the sun, like that you think would be well aligned with your goals and priorities?
So my response to that is going to be this, is that we have discussed in the process of hiring the new city manager that we really need to sit down and do that again. Set our goals and priorities as a group with the new manager in place. And so I honestly, that doesn't help what you want to work on immediately, but I honestly think that there will be some reconsideration of that. Now, it may also make it more timely for you all to submit to us some sort of general sustainability benchmarks or guidelines or whatever the rule is, whatever the concept is we're talking about, to be part of that discussion. Again, I can't promise that it will be a central feature of what comes out of there, but if it's not on the list of things to talk about, then it's certainly not going to be.
So okay, so to that point, if you're looking to create goals with that city manager, I might have missed something as I was kind of digesting what you're stating. With that process of identifying goals with that city manager, how is council or the incoming city manager going to take input as to how that would be? Because I mean, the new city manager might have, she might have her own perspectives of her priorities, et cetera. So like how might we be able to give input into that?
I'm going to say, I wish I had a good answer to that question. I do think that until she arrives, I'm not sure that we know what this process is going to look like. So my guess is that sometime in the spring, we will engage in this process. And I guess my best response is, if you as a group have ideas about what those benchmarks or goals might be for us as a community, to just go ahead and formulate them and send them forward for consideration. I get that that's labor intensive. So if you would rather wait until I and Joanne will know as well, because she'll be involved as well, and what that process might look like, we can come back to you and tell you when we have begun to sort of map that process, and then you can make a decision about what you might want to say to us as we move forward. I'm not sure which is the better plan, because we haven't talked about what it's going to look like. Usually it's like a 2-day retreat where for council members that we talk about a lot of these things and we come to some agreements and narrow the field a little bit.
Then I might ask it a little bit differently. So unofficially, it's not the full city council's goals moving forward. And since that's being stipulated, are there certain things where council liaison Laura or Arnold's is thinking of that might have other council members' thoughts aligned with?
So I have had two other council members talk to me about revisiting walkable, bikeable. I will tell you that. Because they've heard from community members. So that's certainly one thing. Because I am so interested in housing and what we're doing with housing, I'm very interested as we do all these different ordinance changes about duplexes, about house size, that there is a voice from this commission saying to the Plan Commission that you need to pay attention to this, or a stronger voice than there has been in the past. In terms of like specific projects though, I really believe that you all have some things, you all have to decide what you really want to work on. It isn't, sometimes it's my job if council says we want this done. Like we said to the Plan Commission, we want more duplexes to be built in Webster Groves, figure out how to do that. But I don't have any real directives for you, I guess. And so I know, Eric, that's not helpful in narrowing things down.
No, it is. I mean, I think we're again, I think that I mean, y'all are elected to try to represent and move forward. So you take public input and doing all that and how to move forward. I think it was the commission too, like it again, just we've had experiences, some very successful and some less successful and some less successful. And I think in those instances, it's where you put a lot of effort into something and it just kind of hits a wall. And so I think what I'm wanting to do is to know all the ins and outs of process as much as possible. So that way we don't hit walls or we don't miss a boat for a, massive thing by a couple months or whatever. So, so I think that this is helpful, I believe. So, does anyone else have any thought, or Joanne, do you have any like insight from your staff or anything? Because I know there's certain things that we worked with, whether that's the Green Cities Challenge, among other initiatives such as that, or what have you. So, is there good feedback or not, or there's some excitement to move forward in a certain direction that we can potentially leverage and support, or is it kind of again just back to us?
So regarding the sustainability piece, I haven't had, or I haven't asked, I guess, the department directors for any feedback. So I don't know the answer to that question. What I do know is, for example, the walkable, bikeable piece, the public works director would be more than willing to work with a subcommittee to get some ideas and figure out what might be workable for us and what definitely would not be, because he has a really good idea as far as financially what we can do, and also just the layout of the city. And he and I had just talked about this last week. So I'm certain that he would be comfortable with that. And when we get to other pieces, that's, for example, regarding the Plan Commission, we could involve Mara Perry, the planning director, in conversations about certain items as well. I have no issue with involving any of the department directors or other city staff in conversations to clearly understand things and move forward on things that are beneficial to the city. I think we just need to figure out what we want to do and then move forward on some of those initiatives.
Yeah, and Eric, I'd also like to add, I think energy efficiency is super important, and plugging into things. Oh, pardon the pun. With like, I really did not mean that. With like Grow Solar, I feel like this we have this opportunity to like say, hey, we're going to save. Here's sustainability is what it is. It's a way that we can save money, and it's a way that we can save the future. To make our community sustainable for the long term. So, what are there here? Moral, and as far as what we're looking at in the future, and then also financial. And I don't know if we need to consider that when we're trying to decide what to focus on for 2021.
I think that, so you kind of cut out there for a second, Lisa, my end. Hearing energy efficiency, I'd agree. Like, I think that that's part of like why kind of gravitates the one STL. Like they have a lot of resources that are just there. I mean, John knows a lot of that stuff inside and out, but I don't. And so like I go on there and I can actually, kind of reference the International Energy Code, and Missouri doesn't adopt an energy code. Illinois does. Like municipalities can. That's something we look at. So because I agree that that is something worth considering as well. So I'll just type in here from what you're saying, energy efficiency.
Cool.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch all of what you had said. Is there another element that should be there?
No, and I'm sure my internet is just stupid. So no, I was just saying, just where's areas where we can help save the city money. I know it's not going to be gobs of money, but if we can be more efficient with our resources, I think there's a couple of bottom lines we can tend to.
I'm sorry, Eric, but we're at 5:25 and we have to be off at 5:30.
Yep. Okay. Yep, for sure. Does anyone else have any other thoughts that we want for future discussion? To kind of further whittle through this list?
It's a good list.
Okay, and I'm gonna plop on there, and I know the train's probably left the station here, but this might be sorry, I'm kind of fumbling forwards here as I'm trying to type. So SG development / future development projects. We talk about things like this in the planning review board, et cetera. I'm just wondering, again, sustainability requirements or criteria, ordinance, whatever, the code. I don't know how we want to describe that, but what that might be. So that's something that I think that there's good opportunity there. I mean, Webster Groves is an amazing community, and it's well sought out. And I think that if we ensure that future developments hit anyway, so I'll just leave it there. I think people know where I'm going, but all right. Any other comments or thoughts before we wrap this up? I'll try to, I will reframe this list and I'll share it with you, Joanne, and John as well, to put in the minutes, and anyone else that wants to see it.
I've been taking screenshots.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll try to make it a little more pretty and whatnot. So.
I will just add that December 7th is the next Plan Commission meeting, and that those two items are definitely in discussion right now. The first being the size of house, the lot area ratio, or the floor area ratio. So size of house on a particular lot, and then also the making duplexes easier. So public comment will be important. I've already heard from a couple of people who asked me why we want to build more duplexes. So it's not a hard answer, but it would be nice to have some people saying, why aren't we doing this more? So.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting us know that and kind of nudging us that direction. So I think that there's good opportunities there that we can plug into. So if anyone wants to volunteer to sit in and participate in that Plan Commission meeting, then by all means, I might join that myself, since I've been involved with or try to participate a lot in the SG collaborative meetings. So, all right. Unless there's any other remaining thoughts and whatnot, I appreciate everyone's time. Sorry for going over so long today. And sorry if I kind of derailed some of the conversation to like certain things on this list. I know we didn't end up with the outcome that we wanted of identifying kind of clear goals of what we wanted to set forth next, but I think it's worthwhile conversation anyway, at least from my perspective. So with that, I guess if there's a motion to adjourn.
Could we just check, is the next meeting date on Monday, December 21st, okay with everybody?
Woo.
I know we're getting right close to the holidays.
Yeah.
Good with me.
Fine with
I'll
me.
make it work.
I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you.
So it's the 21st at 4:00.
Yes.
I promise to show up on time. Sorry about that again.
Happens. All right. Great.
All
Yes,
right,
it is.
I have a meeting at 5:30, so I motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
You guys.
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? All right. Thank you all. Have a good one.
Everyone.
Aye.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.